keeping you informed and engaged. Now more than ever. This is Sekulow. We want to hear from you. Share and post your comments or call 1-800-684-3110. And now your host, Logan Sekulow.
Welcome to Sekulow. Hopefully you're watching on YouTube, on Rumble, or maybe on the Salem News Channel, which we are now live on every day. If you're not a part of the Salem News Channel, you should check it out. See what they're doing over there. Our friends at Salem. We've been on the network for about a year, but now we are live now, noon to 1 p.m. each and every weekday. So find us there on Salem News Channel. I did also want to take a minute to thank everyone who signed up and became an ACLJ champion over the last couple days. We've been promoting that a lot, and I encourage you right now, if you can, if you have the money right now, as we head into a very important week, and we can discuss that in a second, a very important week in terms of all of the confirmations that are going to start happening, the hearings that are going to start happening, we could use your support here at the ACLJ. And you can become an ACLJ champion. That is someone who gives on a recurring monthly basis, or if you can give a one-time donation, do it as well. Just go to aclj.org to do it today. But, Will, it's an important week coming up next week.
That's right. And as we look ahead, as we approach the inauguration of President Trump as the 47th president of the United States, the Senate, who has already been sworn in, were sworn in just at the beginning of this January, they are moving forward. They are going to have these hearings. While they can't vote on the nomination until President Trump has been sworn in, they can begin to hold their hearings and get everything ready so that on January 20th, they can begin to vote out of committee, and then to the full Senate, fulfilling their advice and consent role. We know in this week ahead, we have Pete Hegseth and Pam Bondi are going to start hearings. We also know that Tom Cotton, who is the head of the Senate Intelligence Committee, is pushing for the CIA Director John Ratcliffe hearings to begin, as well as the next Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, for her hearings to begin. So we will be following it all closely. We will be reporting on it and bringing you information here and giving our analysis as we watch these hearings in this week ahead. But it is something that we are very focused on. If you go to aclj.org/petitions, there is a petition there where you can support these nominations. And when you sign that petition, our government affairs team makes sure that the senators see that. We say the ACLJ is bringing this many members have signed this petition, and they want you to confirm President Trump's nominees. And we will even break it down by state many times. If a certain senator from a certain state, we have a large portion of our audience that has signed that petition, and be like, look how many of your constituents want you to move forward with President Trump's nominees so that we can begin this fight to restore the America that we've fought for.
Right. It's going to be a big week, so make sure you stay tuned. Obviously, we are just a few days now from President Trump being inaugurated in Washington, D.C. It is a crazy time. I think it feels like it happened. The election was 100 years ago. It also feels like it happened just yesterday, and it's hard to believe that we are already here midway through the month of January, heading towards Inauguration Day. It's pretty wild. Again, I want to encourage you to support the work of the ACLJ. Earlier this week, you heard from one of our new clients, or lawyers, about one of our new clients who is on the front lines for the pro-life movement with someone who was protesting out in front of a pro-life or sort of an abortion clinic, and they were told and arrested for speech. That, and you know what we've been doing in Massachusetts, and we're about to roll out in the next few weeks, that $500,000 counter ad campaign to promote pro-life resource centers in the Boston and Massachusetts area, because they have come under such attack by their own government. You can find out more. I encourage you just to go to aclj.org and look around. Incredible resources, incredible content that's posted every day. Obviously on our YouTube channel, on our Rumble channel, on Instagram, we're putting up new content every single day. So make sure you're staying engaged that way. And of course, important time, become an ACLJ champion, someone that gives on a monthly recurring basis. You can do it right now as little as $5 or set it as high as you'd like. We would love that. All right, we got a packed show coming up. Stay tuned. Again, aclj.org right now. Read the new articles. Get engaged. It's a great place to interact.
deadly apocalyptic scene, wildfires tearing through Los Angeles. They now fear thousands of homes destroyed here, at least 5 people dead. Authorities saying there are many, quote, significant injuries. This evening across Los Angeles, there are now 6 wildfires. The Palisades Fire, the Eaton Fire, the Hearst Fire, the Sunset Fire, the Lydia Fire, and the Woodley Fire.
The Palisades Fire grows to over 17,000 acres, becoming the most destructive wildfire in LA history.
Firefighters are facing wind gusts up to 100 miles per hour. The U.S. Navy, we've learned, has just dispatched 10 water-dropping helicopters to help try and beat back the flames.
Tonight, thousands in the region are under evacuation orders, filling shelters. Schools are closed, while power is out for 1.5 million Southern Californians.
As dawn broke in Pacific Palisades, we found a scene that can only be described as apocalyptic. The once vibrant village off iconic Sunset Boulevard had stood like this for decades.
Oh my God.
Until now.
We just arrived here in what is left of downtown Pacific Palisades, and I am overwhelmed by the scale of loss. Many people are going to return to homes that were lost, and even more important, their community completely gone.
On the streets below the hills, evacuation orders stretched south to the famous Hollywood Boulevard and its Walk of Fame, where spectators gathered to watch the blaze and traffic bottlenecked with residents trying to escape. And on the other side of the hills, Studio City at one point looked to be the next part of a town under serious threat, with flames engulfing homes and acres of brush. An all-out assault by crews dropping water from helicopters eventually gave them the upper hand, but some abandoned homes could not be saved.
All right, welcome back to Sekulow. We are taking your phone calls too, 1-800-684-3110. Another issue we want to talk about because we have a lot of listeners in California, in Southern California. Really, one of our strongest support bases in the country, Logan, is Southern California.
Yeah,
and
that always
members.
sounds
We
weird,
also have
but
members of our team, Rick Grinnell, who are in Southern California right now, and my wife's family all live in Southern California, and she's spent most of her life there. Has never dealt with the fires, dealt with the smoke, has never had it this close to home, and this time it is that close to home. And Rick is joining us now. Rick, just first, again, I know you're in one of those communities where my father-in-law lives, and it's one that usually has not been as affected as much by these fires. They've gotten close, but it's usually not as affected, and they're right on the line right now about how long they'll be able to stay. I mean, the pictures that they are sending from just their cell phones, it's just shocking.
Well, I have to say, the range of emotions that we're going through here in Southern California are quite wide. We've gone from panic, worry, to anger. It's ongoing. I'm in Manhattan Beach. We're safe. But they are, not able to contain these fires, and they're evacuating people in Santa Monica. So this is, a concern for us. This is just a couple beaches away. And now we're watching as the Hollywood Hills are, literally starting to catch fire, massive fires in Studio City. This is no longer just the west side, the beach side. This has now gone inland, and there's no hope right now. This is 0% contained, and we have fundamental problems in terms of, it is Southern California. We are a dry place, but the reality is in 2014. The residents of California voted for a multi-billion-dollar bond measure, statewide bond measure, and we voted to create more water holding mechanisms. As it is right now, the environmentalists who control the ruling party of the Democratic party in control of Sacramento, completely in control of Los Angeles. They do not allow us to capture rainwater. America has watched as Southern California has had mudslides and massive rain last year. None of that was captured because we have a system, a far left belief within our political establishment that we shouldn't capture rainwater. It's not a good idea. When you combine that in an area that is drought driven, and the fact that we don't do basic forestry, we don't clear brush, we don't take away trees, we literally allow dead trees to fall on the ground, stay there, and become timber in a drought-prone area. This is just fundamentally not common sense, and it's now all coming back at a terrible time with massive winds and a lack of rain, and they don't know how to stop it. We have politicians who literally are applying for grants back in Washington, D.C. as a solution, and we need help. We need help. This is not a situation where it's just the rich people who are being affected. This is massive, and this is middle class, and this is America.
Sure, Rick. Yeah, I mean, if you go a mile in any direction in LA, you're going to be in very different worlds in terms of economic growth or how people are doing financially. Now, there's been a lot of pushback over what people are saying is the politicization of these fires as they are ongoing. It's happening. It's heartbreaking. But I kind of wanted your thoughts because you talked about that, how you do feel like this is a failure in leadership, and that this is really not politicizing it. This is really just putting a light on it.
Yeah, look, come on. The politicians in California are completely coming from the Democratic Party that controlled this place for a very long time. The largest newspaper in California, the LA Times, is so far left woke. Do you know that for days on end, they did not even report that the mayor was in Africa? The largest newspaper in the state, the Los Angeles Times, did not report that our mayor was in Africa while this whole thing was unfolding. So when you combine the fact that the media in California are so far left, they protect the ruling class, of course these people are going to be jumpy and nervous that the public is finding out about all of their bad policies. Of course they're going to say now is not the time. I just watched the press conference with Karen Bass, who literally said there'll be plenty of time to look back and figure out what went wrong. We know what went wrong, and she is going to have to resign. And let me promise you this. We are going to lead the revolt to get rid of her. You don't get to be this much of a failure and not face the consequences. I don't care how many people tell us it's inappropriate timing. We are suffering. People are panicking. The air quality is absolutely horrific. People who even remotely have breathing issues are having to leave because they are just getting suffocated. And by the way, we don't know when this is going to improve, and the fires around us are 0% containment. People need to understand this is not just a news story. This is a crisis in the largest county in America. Los Angeles County is the largest county in America.
Rick,
and our leaders are completely rudderless. They don't know what to do.
Rick, you shared on Twitter, and I want people to understand the magnitude of this, a video clip from outside your home. And while you say you're safe now, but the proximity of which that fire is to even where you are, and when it's 0% contained, that we see the destruction, we see the devastation, but I think it's important for also people to be praying for the people of California because this isn't over. They're having a hard time containing it. The water supply issue is a struggle because of failed policies. And just also for people to keep you in mind and your friends in mind, the people who you live around and work with as you have a home there. Just kind of, if you could speak into that for a minute.
Yeah, well, thank you for that. I mean, look, I'm fine. I'm in Manhattan Beach, and we are fine. What we are worried about is the fact that it's not contained. They're evacuating parts of Santa Monica, just a couple of beaches away. And, there are embers. I mean, all over our yard, our cars, it's just filled with ash. I walk around the house thinking, I'm smelling fire constantly because I am. And you're literally wondering, is it my house now? Have the embers, gotten here? And so, yesterday our neighbors were out, spraying their homes and the vegetation just to ensure, I think, a little sanity. And again, Manhattan Beach probably doesn't need to be doing that right now. But when you see 0% containment and Santa Monica being evacuated, and then you're watching the Hollywood Hills. Last night, I talked to several of my friends who were saying that they're in the evacuation zone. They had to leave. They quickly, you quickly have to leave. I'm on several text chains of people here in my hometown saying, just mentally get prepared. What would you grab? What would you take? Here are some of the things you're supposed to take. Do you have a bag? And it seems like it's overreacting. And then you find yourself saying, you know what, I should probably just put the list together. And I should be ready because, as my friends tell me from the Hollywood Hills, they were totally thinking it was not anywhere near them. And then suddenly a fire broke out and they were having to evacuate in literally 20 minutes. And it's a very scary time. Again, it would be so much better if we were containing this, if we were getting to the point where we were starting to control it, that we had enough, firefighters and money and water and help. California has helped a lot of other states and a lot of other countries in crises, and we need the help right now.
Yeah. Rick, thank you for coming on and give us that report. I think you can't be afraid to call out the problems and the issues because we knew that there were these issues and problems before this happened, and knew this was potentially could happen again, and those changes weren't made. And so now has to be the time where people are held accountable, and you really have to make some policy changes to say if this is a place that can be inhabitable and people can get insurance. ACLJ.org. We'll stay updated on this as well. We'll be right back.
I believe that people were born pro-life, but somewhere along the line, the devil's lies began to infiltrate. People began to grab onto this culture of death.
When a young teenager or even college girl finds out she's pregnant,
immediately it's that, oh my God, what am I gonna do kind of moment.
I just broke down in tears. I was like, oh God, I didn't even want to tell my mom, and I just cried. I cried.
So we need to let women know that there are people in the life-affirming movement who do care for her, who love her.
Having somebody who's unbiased and unjudgmental, who's not pressuring you into a choice is kind of that first step in that, and just welcoming her and letting her tell her story. Second to that, I think the biggest impact comes from the ultrasound. When they are able to see it for themselves, that completely wipes away the myth and the lie that it's a blob of cells.
And as soon as she sees her child on that screen, she forms that bond, she forms that connection. She knows that she's been told lies about what's actually taking place, and that she does have a real baby with a real life and with real value.
The ultrasound, that did it. That helped me a whole lot. Seeing his little bitty heartbeat, I almost cried. Seeing his little heartbeat, knowing that he deserved to live, It's a human growing inside you, They deserve life.
The battle that we're facing in this life-affirming movement really is a battle against darkness. It's a battle against the enemy who's trying to devalue God's very creation. So what we're seeing is just an attack right against God's people, right against His word, and it's a darkness that we're fighting.
We want to equip the church. We want to equip these moms, these grandmothers, these families on how to surround these women in love, because then you're not only saving that child, you're saving a generation.
Welcome back to Sekulow. The ACLJ has been on the front lines of our fight for life for decades and decades. And you'd think that some of these cases that come about and these issues that come about should be settled law, and often they are. But it doesn't mean you still don't have to fight them. And I'm excited today to talk about a new one. We have ACLJ attorney Elgin McArdle, who is joining us live right now via Zoom. Thanks for joining us. Why don't you give our audience just a brief background on what this current issue is? And of course, it's going to sound familiar because this is something the ACLJ has been fighting for since the 80s. And here we are.
Well, thank you for having me, first of all. And I'm happy to share our current case, which involves a couple, and specifically a man who has been arrested and cited for disorderly conduct based upon his actions on a particular day wherein he and his wife were advocating for unborn children in front of an abortion clinic. He was very composed. He used a megaphone, and they basically cited him for using the megaphone because it was too loud, quote unquote. In the meantime, he was also, in my opinion, attacked, and wrongly so, verbally, extremely vulgar language used by the escorts that were at the clinic. They basically used foul language and told his wife, who herself is an abortion survivor. So his wife's mother was planning to have an abortion and changed her mind. And so he is now married to that individual. Well, the escort at the abortion clinic basically told her that if she wanted to die, they could make that happen. It was very rude. And so he has been charged with disorderly conduct. There is supposed to be a hearing tomorrow on those charges, but he has not been served officially from the municipal court. When he pled not guilty in mayor's court, they shifted in Ohio to the municipal court. And there they set a hearing. We are waiting to see whether they're going to go forward with that hearing tomorrow or whether they're going to go ahead and continue it. In the meantime, we are challenging his arrest and the constitutionality of the statute on both First Amendment and 14th Amendment grounds. First Amendment, obviously, on free speech, religious freedom. The content of the statute is unconstitutional, in our opinion, and also the unequal application of that particular statute to this particular incident, wherein he was the only one arrested and the escorts were not.
Elgin, when we talk about this as well, and you talk about the issues of the unequally applied law here, they were the officers told him he caused annoyance or disturbance, and that criminal citation under the noise ordinance says that it bans annoyance to another, which is such a vague, subjective statute in and of itself. But when you have something here that is clearly unequally applied, the pro-life individual is the one who is cited, placed in the back of a police car, and those that were, as you say, even making threats, being vulgar, had nothing happen to them. That raises the constitutional issues. But it also, I think, shows that even with the new administration coming in, it is favorable to conservatives, to pro-life individuals, and those of us that stand for the sanctity of life. It also shows that our fight sometimes has to turn local and also ensure that we fight for the constitutional rights of everyday Americans, even in places that you may have not heard of, that may not be on the front page of the news, but that's what we're fighting here.
Absolutely. And this is a local county, Cuyahoga County in Ohio, and it is a local ordinance. And as I indicated, it's going to be in municipal court, which is a city court, which is a very, very low court in the grand scheme of things. You know, you were just talking about the United States Supreme Court, but still, this is where it happens to everyday individuals and everyday life, where abortion clinics are still permitted to be taking place or advocating abortions in Ohio. And so they have statutes that try to, I'm going to say, suppress the First Amendment speech and the religious speech that goes with it, or religious beliefs.
I mean, at the end of the day, that's what we're talking about here. Not only your religious beliefs, but we also are talking about the First Amendment. It is something that we have been talking about, again, for decades, making this very clear that your pro-life speech, just because it's pro-life, doesn't mean it stops because you're on a public sidewalk in front of an abortion clinic. In fact, that's where speech should be maybe the most protected. But this is sort of a two-prong effort here at the ACLJ. Maybe we go through that a little bit because we are both representing the client, also taking on the statute. You can kind of break that down a little bit before we really tell people how they can get engaged in this fight for life that we're continuing on.
Yes. So, the criminal case obviously is the one that started it. And we have to dispose of that first. And the motion to dismiss that we're filing are based upon the First Amendment and 14th Amendment. And then ultimately, we would like to get it dismissed. And if it's not dismissed, we want to go forward and challenge it on the civil end as well. But, you can't challenge it civilly until you get through the criminal process. And so it's sort of a hybrid and a bifurcated case that we will be handling. But hopefully we will be very successful. I think we will. The conduct in this case was witnessed by the actual police officer. So the security guard was a private security guard who was employed by the Cuyahoga County Police. He was the one that I believe called the Cuyahoga County Police to come and cite our clients. So it is two-pronged, but we certainly are still fighting for pro-life. We're fighting for free speech, and we are encouraging everybody to jump on board and help us out.
And Elgin, we're happy to fight this, and it is interesting. This is the second 14th Amendment case that we have worked on with you, one being the 14th Amendment ballot ban that was trying to go forward by the left, and now this, the equal protection clauses within the 14th Amendment. Same amendment, very different purposes here.
Very, very different. But hopefully we'll be as successful in this one as we were in the last.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. If you want to join us in this fight today, as you heard, we are getting involved in filing critical motion in the courts in Ohio. And of course, you've heard about our campaign in Massachusetts. Hopefully you have, where the state has been trying to shut down pro-life pregnancy centers and pressure women into having abortions, not going through those. And we are going to be fighting that, not just in the courts, but we are also launching a $500,000 campaign, ad campaign throughout the state of Massachusetts. And we want to bring that around the country to promote life in a really effective, beautiful way, in a way that is not shameful, not condemning. It is a great campaign that our team put together. So I'm going to encourage you to go to aclj.org to support that, aclj.org/savebabies. You can scan the QR code as well to learn more. These battles require resources all year long. And of course, we are trying to raise the funds for the total ad campaign as well. And the support of ACLJ individual donors is great, but you can also become an ACLJ champion as we head to the end of this first half hour. Some of you lose us on your local radio stations. You can find us broadcasting live on YouTube, on Rumble, on aclj.org, and now live on the Salem News Channel each and every day from noon to 1 p.m. Eastern. Work your way back. But the support of the ACLJ members and ACLJ champions, that's people that give on a recurring monthly basis, automatically, are really what keeps this going. It's a small group of people that are ACLJ champions. We want to see that double this year. So will you join us in that fight? Help protect the unborn at aclj.org/champions. Again, a second half hour coming up. We got a lot of phone lines open for as many of you watching right now. So if you ever wanted to hear your voice on the radio, see it on YouTube, and on the Salem News Channel, give us a call, 1-800-684-3110. Be kind to our phone screeners. We'll be right back.
One more.
keeping you informed and engaged. Now more than ever. This is Sekulow. We want to hear from you. Share and post your comments or call 1-800-684-3110. And now your host, Logan Sekulow.
Welcome to Sekulow. Hopefully you're watching on YouTube, on Rumble, or maybe on the Salem News Channel, which we are now live on every day. If you're not a part of Salem News Channel, you should check it out. See what they're doing over there. Our friends at Salem. We've been on the network for about a year, but now we are live now, noon to 1 p.m. each and every weekday. So find us there on Salem News Channel. I did also want to take a minute to thank everyone who signed up and became an ACLJ champion over the last couple days. We've been promoting that a lot, and I encourage you right now, if you can, if you have the money right now, as we head into a very important week, and we can discuss that in a second, a very important week in terms of all of the confirmations that are going to start happening, the hearings that are going to start happening, we could use your support here at the ACLJ. And you can become an ACLJ champion. That is someone who gives on a recurring monthly basis, or if you can give a one-time donation, do it as well. Just go to aclj.org to do it today. But Will, it's an important week coming up next week.
That's right. And as we look ahead, as we approach the inauguration of President Trump as the 47th president of the United States, the Senate, who has already been sworn in, were sworn in just at the beginning of this January, they are moving forward. They are going to have these hearings. While they can't vote on the nomination until President Trump has been sworn in, they can begin to hold their hearings and get everything ready so that on January 20th, they can begin to vote out of committee, and then to the full Senate, fulfilling their advice and consent role. We know in this week ahead, we have Pete Hegseth and Pam Bondi are going to start hearings. We also know that Tom Cotton, who is the head of the Senate Intelligence Committee, is pushing for the CIA Director John Ratcliffe hearings to begin, as well as the next Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, for her hearings to begin. So we will be following it all closely. We will be reporting on it and bringing you information here and giving our analysis as we watch these hearings in this week ahead. But it is something that we are very focused on. If you go to aclj.org/petitions, there is a petition there where you can support these nominations. And when you sign that petition, our government affairs team makes sure that the senators see that. We say the ACLJ is bringing this many members have signed this petition, and they want you to confirm President Trump's nominees. And we will even break it down by state many times. If a certain senator from a certain state, we have a large portion of our audience that has signed that petition, and be like, look how many of your constituents want you to move forward with President Trump's nominees so that we can begin this fight to restore the America that we've fought for.
Right. It's going to be a big week, so make sure you stay tuned. Obviously, we are just a few days now from President Trump being inaugurated in Washington, D.C. It is a crazy time. I think it feels like it happened. The election was 100 years ago. It also feels like it happened just yesterday, and it's hard to believe that we are already here midway through the month of January, heading towards Inauguration Day. It's pretty wild. Again, I want to encourage you to support the work of the ACLJ. Earlier this week, you heard from one of our new clients, or lawyers, about one of our new clients who is on the front lines for the pro-life movement with someone who was protesting out in front of a pro-life or sort of an abortion clinic, and they were told and arrested for speech. That, and you know what we've been doing in Massachusetts, and we're about to roll out in the next few weeks, that $500,000 counter ad campaign to promote pro-life resource centers in the Boston and Massachusetts area, because they have come under such attack by their own government. You can find out more. I encourage you just to go to aclj.org and look around. Incredible resources, incredible content that's posted every day. Obviously on our YouTube channel, on our Rumble channel, on Instagram, we're putting up new content every single day. So make sure you're staying engaged that way. And of course, important time, become an ACLJ champion, someone that gives on a monthly recurring basis. You can do it right now as little as $5 or set it as high as you'd like. We would love that. All right, we got a packed show coming up. Stay tuned. Again, aclj.org right now. Read the new articles, get engaged. It's a great place to interact.
Meta, the parent company of Facebook and Instagram, announcing a commitment to free speech online and a shift away from censoring all of us.
Even the U.S. government has pushed for censorship. By going after us and other American companies, it has emboldened other governments to go even further. But now we have the opportunity to restore free expression, and I am excited to take it.
We'll move away from the independent, nonpartisan fact-checking they've had in place since after the 2016 election. Instead, he says they will rely on community notes. In other words, users putting out context. This is similar to what X is doing.
This is a great opportunity for us to reset the balance in favor of free expression. As Mark says in that video, what we're doing today is we're getting back to our roots in free expression.
It's going to scale back some of the automatic filters that catch bad content. It says it will keep that for things like terrorism, child sexual exploitation, but for lower severity violations, it's going to ask users to report those before it evaluates them.
This is an important moment. You know, Musk has been out there taking these slings and arrows throughout this process as the only social media company that went full in on free speech. Zuckerberg would be a powerful ally. It would be a wonderful change. You know, Facebook funded a really creepy campaign years ago, trying to get young people to embrace what they call content moderation, what some of us call censorship. And it really failed in a spectacular fashion. It would be great if Zuckerberg could join Musk and create this powerful alliance for free speech.
The recent elections also feel like a cultural tipping point towards once again prioritizing speech. So we're going to get back to our roots and focus on reducing mistakes, simplifying our policies, and restoring free expression on our platforms.
Welcome back to Sekulow. We are going to take your calls about this and other topics as well. If you have a question or comment of anything related to the news right now, give us a call, 1-800-684-3110. If you're watching on YouTube, I'm going to ask you to hit that thumbs up and also put in a comment. If you don't know what to comment, tell me where you're watching from. I always like to see that. We need to make sure more people get this in their feeds because this is a really interesting story, and I think we need to play, Will, some clips from Mark Zuckerberg himself, and I will also give you some headlines, some sort of top lines that we got from our friends at Meta to share, which I thought was pretty interesting. Again, big moves. I believe you can credit Elon Musk for a lot of this. You can credit the success they've had on X, and maybe you could also credit Threads, not exactly blowing the doors down when they had the X alternative. And it's an interesting time, but I think we should play a clip. I mean, you could see it's not just a quick press release, hey, we're doing this. Mark Zuckerberg sort of pleads with the American people, pleads with the world to say, hey, we messed up. We went way too far, and we're going to do what we can to redeem ourselves. Should we go ahead and play a bite?
Yeah, let's go ahead and play bite 2. This is from a video released this morning from Mark Zuckerberg.
The recent elections also feel like a cultural tipping point towards once again prioritizing speech. So we're going to get back to our roots and focus on reducing mistakes, simplifying our policies, and restoring free expression on our platforms. More specifically, here's what we're going to do. First, we're going to get rid of fact checkers and replace them with community notes similar to X, starting in the US. After Trump first got elected in 2016, the legacy media wrote nonstop about how misinformation was a threat to democracy. We tried in good faith to address those concerns without becoming the arbiters of truth. But the fact checkers have just been too politically biased and have destroyed more trust than they've created, especially in the US.
So let me read that to you. The fact checkers have become too politically biased and have destroyed more trust than they've created, especially in the U.S. We can say without a doubt, because we had this happen to us, and we have a lawyer on staff whose main job is to make sure we have a voice advocating for ourselves on these social media platforms, because, Will, there were times where we would have a case, and we were making our argument in the case, and Facebook or the Facebook fact checkers, the independent fact checkers, would come in and say, no, what you're spreading is lies.
And there's one very specific instance that I remember was when it was with a bill that was going in the Maryland State House. It was going forward. It had that language about perinatal abortion, which we were pointing out that term includes the period after birth as well. In that hearing, the lawyers for the Democrats conceded that that's actually what that means. There could be some unintended consequences here. It wasn't even the conservative pro-life faction that was saying this. It was the lawyers for the Democrats. And we were pointing this out. Our lawyers were presenting in this hearing, testifying before a legislative body. We had a post about that very issue. And the liberal fact checkers that Facebook was using rated it as false. Not only does that make the post not get shown up, but it hurts your entire brand and category of having your posts and information seen. We fought it. We were able to successfully overturn it by showing documentation of what we testified, what the Democrat lawyers in that state house testified, and showed them the record and got it overturned with no long-term damage to the organization's social media accounts. However, that is just one caveat, one small thing, because we had the proof, the wherewithal to fight it, and even some connections at Facebook to know the right channels to go to.
Right.
Most people did not even have the time to continue to push to overturn, or even know that they could push to overturn these fact checkers. And even there, Mark Zuckerberg points out that the fact checkers have been too politically biased. That goes to what we've been saying. It goes to our own experience. I know it goes to your experience out there that's watching, that you saw things that were demoted, shadow banned, or disappeared or fact checked because it wasn't even necessarily Facebook themselves, but this team of fact checkers that they had were all left of center and all targeting conservative voices.
Yeah, and we saw that over and over again. Let's go take a call. Let's go to Lynn in Florida, who's listening on the radio. Lynn, you're on the air.
Yes. Meta has not suddenly decided to be a friend of MAGA. They're just doing this to, I guess, not suffer the consequences. They didn't decide overnight to not be evil. If you believe this, you lack wisdom, you lack knowledge, and you lack understanding.
Well, Lynn, I appreciate you calling in, and I understand after many years of dealing with that. I'm a little more hopeful. I'm a little more hopeful that maybe they see the writing on the wall, and maybe this was something that was not directly. I mean, I'm sure, look, they saw the change in the feelings of the American people. Mark Zuckerberg says it in that video. Would this have happened if Kamala Harris had won? Maybe so, because you're trying to keep your business going. You're trying to keep your audience happy. And of course, we've seen so much change in social media over the last few years that people have left platforms. They've joined platforms. The liberal groups all were on Twitter, then they all left X, and it goes back and forth and back and forth. And maybe you could have sort of a return to normalcy. You could say that even Instagram was maybe one of the few that felt a little less politically driven. And I heard an interview actually with one of the heads of Instagram who said, like, one of the reasons that you can't link out is so it did not become a news platform.
Right.
And I think that's maybe what we're seeing, which is get back to why you want to be on Facebook, why you want to be on Instagram. Now, Facebook, they're saying, no, we are actually going to amp up political discussion, if you will. Right. We're going to amp up some of those more controversial topics that we at one point deemed to be for inclusion and now realized that the American people are not one-sided on them.
Well, and to Lynn's point, she is, I would say, justifiably skeptical.
Absolutely.
As probably most people watching, including ourselves, are you want to see the proof once it gets there. But I would also say, when you're seeing like McDonald's announcing just yesterday they're ending some of their DEI practices. You've seen the University of Michigan saying that they're rolling back some of those DEI things. A lot of corporations are saying, we've kind of heard. And I would say some of these corporations are not as ideologically driven by politics as we give them credit for. I think, and I would argue, and probably rightly so to some degree, that these corporations, especially the giant ones, are guided by profit. And when they think that the world, and maybe because of what legacy media is telling them the world wants, they're like, how are we going to make more money? We're going to go do all these DEI things. Yes, is it a lot of money for us? They spend money on these programs that honestly don't make them a dollar, but they think that makes them more palatable or more attractive for the consumer.
Or for the advertiser.
Exactly.
And we saw that happen at a company like Disney, where it went so far where an audience finally started revolting. And you had a group of people inside Disney say, we cannot keep politicizing every piece of content we put out. And when you see it, you can feel it, because it was never done with gentle hands. It was always done with something that just felt so out of place, or something that felt so forced that the creatives involved didn't feel like they even had anything to do with it. It felt like they were just pushed to do it. I think that's what we've seen across the board. Maybe there are some changes. Look, again, I think you could be skeptical. I'm skeptical on Facebook because why? I don't know. Let's say 6 or 7 years ago, we had somewhere between 5,000 to 10,000 people watching our show each and every day on Facebook. As we're broadcasting right now, we got thousands on YouTube, thousands on Rumble. How many do we have right now as we talk about this content on Facebook? 240. Okay, so you can't tell me that hasn't changed. We have 4 million plus people on this page, and 240 are what's watching. So I want to make a challenge to our friends at Facebook and say, how about you lift some of those filters? How about you start notifying people once again that this show is broadcasting live? How about you start doing what you used to do, which was spread the word and let us have a actual forum for discussion? So we'll see if we get there. Phone lines, again, are open at 1-800-684-3110. We've been fighting this for years, and we have successfully won over and over again against social media platforms that have tried to censor us. We have won every single time, and now we've seen Facebook say, we give up, we're changing things. Mark Zuckerberg clearly trying to make some inroads with Trump putting in someone like Dana White, again, the head of the UFC, who you've seen speak at the Republican National Convention. You've seen speak over the years. You've seen him welcome President Trump to UFC events to thunderous applause. Maybe, again, he was doing that when it was not popular to be doing it. And now he's on the board of directors at Meta. That is a big deal and a huge win for conservatives. I mean, this is not a non-controversial figure. This is maybe one of the more controversial media figures just due to the business that he's in. UFC, Power Slap, now involved in the WWE because of TKO. This is someone involved in violent sport, but is a sound conservative.
And Logan, I think to that point as well, that's even bigger to me than just the announcement of going to the getting rid of the fact checkers and going to the community notes, because that also shows they are putting people in leadership. There's a former Republican lobbyist as well as Dana White. Those are two individuals that will help shape policy. Yeah. And so that to me is the bigger news in this, that they are trying to change and seek a new path forward, as opposed to just saying, okay, here's some community notes, everyone should be happy now. I think that is a signal of big change at Meta.
Yep, and I've heard there's some even bigger announcements coming. Stay tuned. We got more coming up. We're going to take your calls in the next segment. 1-800-684-3110.
So if you look at Pierre Poilievre, he's essentially Mitt Romney on social issues, but I think on economic issues, he's quite good. If you were looking for a Canadian who is more in the style of Donald Trump, you would have to look at someone who's even more obscure, and that is Grant Abraham, who is the head of the United Party, which is now a small but very extremely conservative party in Canada, particularly in Western Canada. So one of the things that I think the Americans need to think about is to break Canada up into regions. And so if you look at Alberta and to some extent Manitoba, they tend to be much more conservative than Ontario and British Columbia. British Columbia local politics are left of the moon, for instance. And so one of the problems with Canada, dealing with Canada, is that there are a number of left-wing loons in politics in that particular country.
The social issues, as you bring up, wouldn't necessarily be in line as much with American conservatism. But when you talk about things like the tariff fight ahead that President Trump was threatening Justin Trudeau with, this does seem to be a person that could probably, especially focusing on those issues of cost of living. He obviously was very upset with the free speech issues as well when Justin Trudeau enacted those Emergency Act issues back in the COVID era. He does seem like someone that a Trump-style politician could work well with to maybe get around some of these things, which would be beneficial for both the Canadians as well as the Americans if negotiations can happen without the specter of Mr. Liberal Trudeau, who was put on every pedestal possible by the American elites.
to Sekulow. Again, we're going to take your calls at 1-800-684-3110 talking about the news coming out of Meta. But also, we're going to shift a little bit here, Will, because that we would like to never hear the name Jack Smith again. And I thought the last time we did this show, we said that was going to be it. It was done. It was over. But there is some big news. And as President Trump has just said, some great news. It was his quote, coming out of the potential release of a Jack Smith report. I'll put that in quotes.
That's right. So there's some interesting developments here because based off of the federal law, this is 28 Code of Federal Regulations 600.8 paragraph C. At the conclusion of the special counsel's work, he or she shall provide the Attorney General with a confidential report explaining the prosecution or declination decisions reached by the special counsel. Then in 600.9, the Attorney General may determine that public release of these reports would be in the public interest to the extent that release would comply with the applicable legal restrictions. Now, President Trump's attorneys have been filing in court trying to get to make sure that this doesn't get released. They say it's inappropriate. They don't want Merrick Garland to release this, that they think that it is not in the public interest. He's wrapped up the cases. And also it goes to the point where the judge in Florida said that the special counsel was not properly appointed. So therefore, he should not have the opportunity to release something if he was not constitutionally appointed. But then we were going to talk about this on the show. But then there was a move by Judge Cannon in Florida that issued an order today preventing the DOJ from releasing the report while the legal battle plays out. The DOJ decided to continue to fight that case only on the aspect of that they think that special counsels are constitutional and that he was constitutionally appointed. They've wrapped up the other side of it, but that appeal, when she threw the case out based off of an unconstitutional appointment, they have kept alive. She told the DOJ that they cannot release this while that appeals process goes forward. And she said in her order that this rule remains in effect until 3 days after the resolution by the 11th Circuit of the emergency motion, unless the 11th Circuit otherwise orders. So she's also saying that the 11th Circuit, if they decide to keep special counsel on, get rid of him, whatever, they also have the authority to decide whether or not the Department of Justice can release this. So as of right now, that report isn't being released before he takes office, it appears. And it's a very interesting move because once again, the special counsel's wrapped up all these cases, Logan. They're no longer trying to prosecute, and rightly so. But that special counsel report, remember, we had to listen through the Mueller report and all the spin that the media takes out of it. And they take the juiciest nuggets that they think they can spin on air, and they get everyone to get on air and talk about how bad of a person he is and he should be in prison. And even then, when they had Bob Mueller before Congress and what a disaster that was, it just gives fodder for the left to try and discredit and tear down and take the news away from the actual work of the incoming administration, which is trying to get America back on track. And that's the last thing we need as a country right now, is just a new Jack Smith dossier dropped right as President Trump takes office so that they can just feast on that for as long as they want and not get down to the people's work.
So just to quickly summarize, the breaking news item, the reason President Trump is saying this is great news moving forward is that it is currently being blocked from release. In the thought process is because it was so politically motivated.
Well, the thought process here from Judge Cannon is that, one, her order said that this individual, Jack Smith, was not constitutionally appointed. That is being appealed in the 11th Circuit in Florida. And so therefore, she's saying if they overturn it or whatever, they can decide their own when they get there. But as of right now, because it's still in legal limbo, that it should not be released. Now, there could be a challenge on that order to the 11th Circuit. There could be a lot of things that play out, depending on how badly Merrick Garland wants to smear President Trump on his way out the door because his term as Attorney General is coming quickly to an end. We're only 13 days from inauguration, and we can't get there soon enough.
Yeah, it is crazy. Only 13 days away. It somewhat feels like that President Biden had disappeared, that Kamala Harris had disappeared, and he already had a sort of Trump presidency. Sadly, with the terrorist attacks and things that have happened over the last few weeks, it's just put another spotlight back on the Biden administration and some of the failures that they've had and sort of the bumbling issues that have come up, whether in terms of the statements or the comments. And that's been sort of a bit sad to watch because I felt like we were moving in a direction where we almost had put this chapter behind us already. And now, whether it's giving George Soros the Medal of Freedom or the situation that happened in New Orleans, or even what happened in Las Vegas, which again feels like disappeared from the news, it's sort of shining that light back on. And even having Kamala Harris yesterday certifying the election, which by the way, we didn't bring up, the election got certified in 35 minutes. I think they said one of the quickest ever. And you had that statement, that video from Kamala Harris being like, I trust the American people. And of course, that was after years of slander.
And a little bit tongue-in-cheek here, but you got to give the Democrats credit for one thing yesterday. Democrats have been objecting to the certification of Republican president-elects for, I think, all the way back to the 50s.
Yeah.
And there has been a Democrat that objects to the certification of a Republican. So that is their MO. That is their game plan. They love to object to the certification.
Playing the hits.
But they, for the first time maybe ever, they were able to convince their entire party, hey, let's not make a scene.
Be bigger.
Let's not do this because then they'll be able to say, look, you're just like January 6th. Let's not do that. And they were able to somehow corral the most unruly members of their party into not objecting and get through it quickly. I know Kamala Harris is relieved because you could tell it did not look like she wanted to be much longer up there than she had to be, but they did it. They got through without an objection or someone trying to decertify the election. And you know what that also tells me? For the first time since the 50s, the Democrats truly believe that Donald Trump was rightfully elected. He is our next president.
That's the 50s.
I'm pretty sure it went back that far.
You just said that Donald Trump is the president. You mean the Republican person?
No, the Democrats believe that for the first time, this Republican nominee is the first person that they believe has been elected duly, and they don't need to object to the certification.
It's great. It was very short, and it went off without any issues. I'm going to encourage you to support the work of the ACLJ as we head into the end of the show. There's a great way you can do it. You can sign our petition. You can get involved at aclj.org. Become an ACLJ champion if you can, too. That's someone that gives on a monthly recurring basis. You can give a small, if you give a small donation, that's fine, $10, $20, whatever it is. To become a champion, you just set that monthly membership at whatever price you feel comfortable. I think the minimum is $5 just because of processing fees. You can do that right now. Become an ACLJ champion. See a lot of people saying they'd sign the petition if Tom from MySpace would now become the head of Facebook. I don't know why that's happening in our comments.
Maybe be another board member.
But I like it. I do like that that's happening right now. Thank you again for watching and for listening to our show. Thanks again to our new viewers on the Salem News Channel. We have a lot of new stuff coming out this year. I'm so excited for 2025, but we can't do it without you. So if you can make a donation, I'm going to encourage you to do that right now because that's how this show happens. Not big corporate sponsors, not even big donors, a lot of them. A lot of them are individual people like you that are the backbone of this organization.